Now, a lot of people write compositions on guitar, and it sounds great. It's really good. I mean, you can't think of that actually being written on a piano, but you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. A lot of people that do come out with guitar music, it was originally blocked out and written on a keyboard. So that's the answer to that. Anybody else? Let me ask a question. You guys have to be twins, right?
No.
You're kidding me. Really? Wow. Okay, go ahead.
Which way do you recommend to get into the industry business? The inside out or the outside in?
What I would say, unless you're prepared to go to a school and to do a lot of studying, I would say go to clubs, hang out where music's being performed, make friends, and start that way. That worked for me. Worked for my brother too. That's the way that you probably would want to try to go about it. Once you get into it and you decide that you really like it, maybe what you'd want to do is you'd want to take a couple of courses, you know, like harmony, whatever. You know, there's some really good things you can learn about music without necessarily actually studying a musical instrument, like harmony. That's a real interesting situation. Why things work harmonically and why they don't. Anybody else? Anybody else have any comments? Yes, in the back.
Some of your favorite composers?
Some of my favorite composers are as follows. They are Mozart. They are Beethoven. They are also to include Scriabin, Satie, Debussy, Stravinsky. Those would be my favorite, I think. I know I'm leaving. Oh, I'm leaving my idol out. What's the matter with you? Franz Liszt. My favorite composers are all people, except for Debussy and Satie and Stravinsky. They're people that generally lived in the early part of the 19th century. Chopin also. Liszt, Schumann.
Sorry for the brief interruption. Could we please have all the student hosts please report to the counseling center? Thank you.
So, those are my favorites. But I gotta say one thing, and I think it's gonna kind of surprise you. I don't get my inspiration to write classical music from listening to those people. I get my enjoyment from listening to them. They inspire me. But I get my actual inspiration from looking at artwork, especially the artwork of a couple of different Mexican painters from the last century. I'm particularly fascinated with Frida Kahlo, Diego Rivera, who was her husband, David Alfaro Cisquieros, also a great Mexican painter, and I also like some of the French Impressionistic painters. And I will remind everybody here, I don't know whether it's the LACMA or the MoCA, but they are having a perspective on Rembrandt, and it's coming up. I urge all of you to go to that. It's just beautiful to get to see something like that person actually painted. Really, really, really special. So that's where I get my inspiration from. But those people that I just mentioned are my favorite composers. I try not to listen to a lot of classical music because I love it, but I don't want to be influenced by it, and I don't want to inadvertently copy it. And that's something that I'm real weird about that. I get like oh my God, I don't want this to sound. I don't want to replicate myself, and I don't want to replicate another artist. And that's something that's real important when I write stuff. I want to make sure, have I written something that sounds a lot like this before? If I did, I've got to change it because I'm real fanatical about that. All right, any more questions? I don't know how you speak all day, Edward. I just did 2 of these sessions and I'm ready to go take a nap. And you have to talk to these people all day. Are we good? We're good?
I gotta ask the question.
You have to ask.
I'm asking the same question. Can you just describe or explain the process of how your brother hooked up with Ozzy?
Oh, okay. This seems to be the question of the day. The true story about how my little brother, my baby brother, became probably the greatest guitar player that ever lived, according to the polls, according to the magazines, according to all the work and interest we get right now, is he was playing in a local band that he put together called Quiet Riot. At this time, Quiet Riot had not become successful yet. In fact, like I told the last class, what happened was they got so frustrated about being turned down by all the record companies that they literally rented a truck and picketed the record companies. They got a bunch of their fans together with signs, and they walked back and forth in front of the record companies, the major ones like Warner's and RCA and Polydor and all those, the major record companies that existed in this town in the late 70s, and they picketed them. Didn't do any good, they still didn't get a deal. However, what happened was he became kind of like a household name. There used to be a club in Hollywood called the Starwood Club, and that made him. He was the darling of the Starwood Club. They absolutely, absolutely loved my brother. So when it came time for Ozzy, he'd been kicked out of Black Sabbath for the third and final time. And when he came to this country to try to find a lead player to be in his band that he was forming, he looked at everybody, was discouraged because he did not find anybody that he wanted, and he decided to go back to England. Before he went back, a bass player from a band called Slaughter said, "You need to see one guy before you go back. If you haven't seen this guy, you haven't seen everybody yet. You need to see Randy Rhoads." So Ozzy said, "Well, okay, yeah, sure. Let's get him here." Well, that wasn't that easy. Randy was happy in Quiet Riot, even though they weren't too successful, but it was his band. And he also had a lucrative teaching career. He carried about 53 students a week. So that's about 6 days a week. Work. It's nice. Like teaching. Got a call for an audition. Didn't want to do it. My mom said, "No, you're gone. You're gone." And Randy said, "Yeah, but that's a guy that's got his name like on his hand like that, Ozzy." He goes, "I don't know about this." He goes, I don't want to do no Black Sabbath music, that's for sure." And my mom said, "You're going." He took the material off of it, refinished it, took his little amp, took his guitar, went down an audition, and lo and behold, Ozzy said, "Oh my God, you're the greatest guitar player I've ever seen in my life. You're joining right away, and you're the skinniest person I've ever met in my life. But that's okay, we'll feed you on the road. You get to be in the band." So my brother comes home, tells my mom. My mom's like, This is your break, man. This is where it's going to happen." No. I started Quiet Riot. I want to make it in Quiet Riot. That's my band. That's my band. No, it doesn't work that way. You get these opportunities, and a lot of times there's an old saying that says they only come once. That's not true. I'm living proof. They come more than once, but you have to be ready for them. And when they come, you have to have all your ducks in a row. You have to be ready to produce, because there's no such thing as it comes up and then you're like, "Well, I could be better prepared in 2 or 3 days." Yeah, but the person's not there in 2 or 3 days. He's there now. So you have to step up and deliver now. So he went down to this hotel in West Hollywood, whatever, tuned up his amp. He's noodling around while he's tuning up, and Ozzy goes, "You got the job." And Randy goes, "I haven't played anything yet. I'm just tuning up." And Ozzy said, "You're the greatest guitar player I've ever seen in my life. You got the job. Please work with me. Please be in my band." The rest is history. That's the honest truth. Now, of course, in the days after that, they did set up a situation where they had a whole band together. So Ozzy could hear Randy with a drummer and with a bass player, you know. But he had already made up his mind. He knew right away. He said, this is special. This is really special. One other thing, really quick. I didn't think to tell this. This is one of those things that I thought about telling the first group, you know, after I already talked to them, and I didn't say it. Well, guess what? I remembered it to tell to this group. Usually, whenever there is an era in music or art, whenever there is an epoch, whenever there is a genre, there are 2 defining people of that genre all the time. In the 1970s and 80s, it was Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads. Those were the 2 guys. If you go back to the 40s, it was 2 saxophone players. One guy's name was Charlie Parker. Everybody called him Bird. He was the most way out, wild, incredible, genius sax player that ever lived. And there was another cat at that time named Lester Young. Those are the 2 guys from that period. If you go back to the 1920s in literature, it was Michener. No, it was Fitzgerald and Hemingway. Those were the 2 guys. So usually when you have an epic, usually when you have a time when something comes out, like in music or art, there's two defining people that are the figureheads of that epic. And my little brother was the Southern California guitar player, along with Eddie Van Halen.